And welcome back to part 39 of Final Fantasy XII, where today we got a little bit of cleanup to do and then we got a super boss to take on, as in our last extra video before we get back to the main plot. The first thing of note is at the port of Balfamheim, from the moment we did Guru Vagan, those 3 new spells can be brought. Additionally, you might now be in a position to now finally buy the Morbid Urn, which will also get you a trophy. The Morbid Urn makes every single enemy in the game have a chance of dropping an Arcana. Arcanas, or Arcanas, if you want, depending on your pronunciation, are amazing loot to have, not just to sell, but for what they are tied to. The spells that we got as well is Arise, which is the same as Raise, but will restore someone to full health after a pickup. Shock, which is the weakest of the 4 non-elemental powerhouse attacks, because it is tier 3 single target, so it is great to have because it doesn't cost anywhere near as much MP, and it's guaranteed damage since it's non-elemental. And Graviga, which gravity is percentage based damage as I've mentioned before, but now towards a wider party. But if you head over to Windmill 10 and talk around, you will eventually be able to chat to this guy. He will only appear if you've done the hunts in the area. What have you had there? Could it be a viral scale? Evil is to recognise it for a treasure is denied. Please, I must have that dragon scale. Alright, here you go. Thank you, it's for my life's work. Here, I'll give you something. Thanks to this, the key to open to a terrible worm. You obtain the age-worn key. This key is our ticket to the super boss. There are 2 doors that need to be opened. The first one is from that key, the second one is via a puzzle in the area. As you can see, I kind of just booked it over here, so I had a few stragglers follow me along. A few bell wyverns. But then, not too bad. Back in the Sohain Cave Palace, I've mentioned this puzzle before, but you need to go through these doors in a very specific order. The idea is that you enter from the right hand side. You enter from 3 o'clock. Because you are following a rotation of the sun. That is the idea of the puzzle. So from here, you're going to drift to your left door and go towards the south entrance. And then from there, you're going to continue drifting towards the east entrance, and then to the north, and then back round to where you started. The hint that this is connected to the puzzle is that if you interact with the door, the name of these doors will change. If you interact with anything that is tied to a puzzle, they will have their name changed. The example also being is that there are doors in the area beneath us that will say Pilgrim's Doors, because they are tied to the Pilgrim's puzzle. Whilst these is tied to the hours of the sun, so these are all called the Doors of Hours. But like I said, this puzzle is simple enough. You could easily stumble into it of your own fair will. The fact that there's one entrance that's just kind of off to the side on its own might eventually give you the idea to check it out when you realise there is a puzzle of some kind here, even if you don't read into it that much. And eventually you're going to start fucking around with the doors, and doing a circle around it is usually a fair play. But as you can hear, once you get this, the game will tell you hear a door open in the distance. So if you just go back around, I don't think it matters anymore if you decide to just push through, but instead of sitting through little scenes of doors opening, I just run round again. This first door will now be interactable. Loot out as best you can whilst you're here. You might as well, not that it's going to make that much of a difference. But now we can open this door. And there are some enemies down here, a weaker version of the Abbasteel, which is maddening because the only Abbasteels we've seen are like level 60. So to see them actually be a reasonable level is bizarre. And what we are approaching is the weakest of all the main super bosses in the game. And so, needless to say, approach with extreme caution, because even if it's the weakest of the lot, it is still a super boss. Only enter this room when you are absolutely prepared. Go over everything you have, make sure you've got everything in order exactly how you want it. If you're playing on PS4 or just the PS4 Xbone Switch remaster, please set the game to 4 times speed though, because this super boss will annihilate you otherwise. But when you're ready, open that door and prepare to be introduced to our first super boss. This is the Hellworm. Look at that health bar. That is 8,930,711 HP. This fight is not just gonna go by quickly. If you're playing on the base PS2 version, you're gonna feel the length of this fight because you're running at base speed and you cannot do any more damage than 9999. Not that we are doing any more damage than 9999 right now. Alternatively, your best bet is to actually bring techniques on board and start spamming the hell out of reducing its physical and magic resistances. If you can lower its raw stats low enough to speed up the process of this fight, I fully recommend it. Unfortunately, we still do not have the techniques available to reduce attacking stats, so the Hellworm is absolutely going to be a gargantuan threat throughout the entirety of this. The Hellworm also has a super special attack where it will charge up and do an animated scene that always rocks the boat. So bring everything you can to this fight. Do not hesitate with MP. Burn through as much as you can, but bring as many ethers as you can to try and counter it, because you need to hit it hard and fast if you think you're going to stand a chance against this thing. Right now we have it on 2 times speed, but I think I do eventually push it up to 4 times speed. At least I hope I do. Yeah, there it is. When you enter the fight, it might actually be worth not putting it at sped up version until you feel like you're in some kind of pattern. So as you can see, we're already 2 of the many bars down. But you're going to see me stop and pause a lot of times through this to alternate different strategies and try and put different things together. I eventually stopped Redis from casting Holy because it's not doing enough to justify getting him to continue. The MP he is burning through isn't worth it because Redis doesn't have that much. And I don't want the ethers getting wasted on him when they would more deservedly need to go to Balthier for Scathe and Ash for healing. Similar to when we fought Fafnir, this thing, if it wants to do a physical attack, has to turn and face its target, so if you can get it to drift towards a more tanky character, you'll have a better opportunity for the rest. But unlike Fafnir, this guy does have access to magic and he doesn't need to face you for magic to be cast, so you are not completely safe. Every now and then the AI will kind of temporarily switch off for the thing, and I have no idea why this specific fight does it and no other in the game does it, but every now and then it will just kind of stop itself, giving you room to breathe. But this is its ultimate attack. This is Judgment, where it will essentially break down the entire arena in the equivalent of Flare, like in a traditional Flare, like a Mega Flare. Which I guess is the closest you're going to get to Mega Flare, since Bahamut is only an airship in this game. Bahamut isn't actually a dragon with a ultimate doom spell. The ultimate issue with Judgment is that it has a chance to cast Stop. It is not guaranteed, but it is a chance. So if you have any equipment on your party that you can equip that will make them immune to Stop and Slow, you need to put it on them as you can as you go through. Ash has the benefit that I have the haste mote on her. I have the haste accessory on her at all times, so even if she is inflicted with slow, it technically won't count. Even if the condition in the corner says slow, she will still be moving at haste speed, which is kind of ridiculous that the game kind of allows that, but it saves lives, you know. Alternatively, if you're struggling in the health department, like you feel like the Hellworm is just one-shotting your party too much, if you've been following along, you should have 3 bubbles and bubble belts. You should absolutely be able to give your whole party double health, outside of obviously Redis because you can't change his equipment. Which also leads to the point of, if you can't defeat this boss now, don't worry about losing Redis after you've done the Pharaoh's tower, because Redis won't be helping in this fight that much. One of the issues with guest characters is because you can't up their equipment, they will run out of worth after a while. They are only meant to be in your party for the main journey, so if you take them away from that, they will start to run out of steam, which is what really starts to happen to Redis. Redis is the least important player of this party in this fight, and he's like that for the entirety of it as Hellworm prepares a second Judgment. Unfortunately, regardless of what version you play, you have to sit through the entirety of this animation every time, which is just slow as hell, and you feel it a hell of a lot more when we get to the last of the 4 main super bosses I wish to fight in this game. There's technically 5, but as I've said before, the 5th one is super duper secret and very well hidden away and is nigh on impossible. I'd love to try and take it on and defeat it one day, but I have no desire to do it right now because there's no real reward for it other than another piece of the puzzle in getting the Worm Hero Blade. A blade that could just be stolen off an enemy in trial mode if you get far enough into it. And the invisible weapons are better anyway, so you know. But as you can see, this guy also likes to cast Stone Breath, which isn't an immediate stonification. It is another petrify based thing where someone is put on a time limit and you have a set amount of time to go on it. So have gambits for status conditions. Have a gambit for Cronus tier on your knight. Have a gambit for a gold needle. Have ethers. Essentially put all your item management on your knights or on your physical attacker if you have one in your party. If your whole party is made out of magic users, you're playing a very dangerous game, and I kind of salute you. But I can imagine you're doing a challenge run anyway, so I'm sure you've got it all worked out. Having the balance of having at least one physical attacker can make the difference. Darker is probably its most forgiving attack because it only hurts so much and you can heal past it. Stone Breath is annoying but is deal-with-able. It also has access to a lot of tier 3 attacks. Rake is the attack that always worries me the most because as you saw there, it just puts Balthier down. Rake has a tendency to connect more than once, and that is the main reason why it's fearful, because one hit with Rake can do near 3000 damage, but if it can use it up to 2 to 3 times in a single turn, not even Barsh really stands a chance of surviving it. And similar to when we fought Gilgamesh, this is the entirety of the video, is fighting this thing. This is why I didn't tack this on at the end of the last one, because otherwise the video is just going to be ridiculously chunky and bloated because of it. If I had to do all the boring stuff of the hunts, then to do this on the other side. But I wouldn't be showing it to you if I didn't win. So yes, it is absolutely possible to win at this point. Especially because of all the side stuff that we have been doing, we are a lot stronger than perhaps we might have expected to be. Because as you can see, although we've still got a long ways to go, we're a little over a third of the way there, or on a third, I'd say. It looks like around that. Unfortunately, the boss theme, there's no unique boss themes or like that. I kind of wish they played something different than there's the standard boss for this super boss and the other ridiculously overly healthy super boss in the game. Because this boss theme is great, and you get bored of it. Like, you lose the flair of it after a while, because you've got to hear this for a long while. Like I said, this isn't the only fight that is incredibly overlong. In fact, this one's actually kind of harmless in comparison to the other one that's got too much health. But to get access to the very, very last hunt of the game, once every single other hunt is done, the Hellworm also needs to die before it will be available to you. Because you have to have proven your worth to Mont Blanc in every sense of the word. And to prove your worth to Mont Blanc, every single other hunt needs to be done and the Hellworm needs to be defeated. And then you'll get access to the final hunt of the game. Which is the last proper video of this Let's Play is going to be against that particular fight. There's one more video after that I have recorded and put together that's a hell of a lot shorter, but it's more about just covering things outside the game, like trial mode. And hopefully, because I still try every now and then, even though I've completely fucking given up, I'm still trying to squeeze in getting an invisible weapon to show you how OP they are. But I just have yet to get one. Because my luck is genuinely that bad. As you can see, for a while the Hellworm decides to change into spamming invert, and invert is not the same as reverse. I always need to point out the difference between them. Reverse is when healing hurts and hurting heals. Invert just flips whatever your MP is to your health, and whatever your health is now is your MP, which if anything is actually the most harmless attack he can do, because it will waste a turn. Like, there's no multi-hit so it can kill you, so he has to waste a turn doing it, so you always have the time to heal it off anyway. And, well, if you had full health, well, now you've got max MP no matter what. Do you see where I'm coming from with this? No matter what you do, or how it's handled it, you're always going to be in a position to be fine. Like, if he wants to spam invert, you're golden, he's never going to kill you. No matter what he does immediately afterwards, assuming it's not Rake, which, let's be honest, regardless of what happens, Rake's probably going to kill one of you anyway, you'll be fine. It's just when you start spamming Rake, is that where you get into a bit of trouble. However, like a lot of the bosses we have fought, as his health bar lowers, during specific points of his health, his strategy and his ideas will change. So you have to change with it to get the most out of it. This is where I finally get the idea to use exposed a couple times, but at this point in the journey of my recording, I still wasn't aware of how exactly they worked. Like I said, it took me a long while before I actually really got the idea of how they work. They can be stacked, and I heavily recommend you should, because they are permanent stat lowerers on your enemy. There's not like a timed thing where you have to use it again later. If you just spam the hell out of it until the game stops letting it register, then you will be at the most effective you can be, and you can speed up this fight a hell of a lot more. If I'd caught on sooner and done it like that, I probably could have ended this fight about 10 minutes sooner. But because I just didn't really know at this point, and didn't really know until I started hunting down the other two techniques of stat lowering, that I just happened to stumble upon a note that mentioned it, it's still going to be a while. Alternatively, if you're not interested in the side stuff and you just want to go through the main game, the 4 techniques I've been referring to, the stat lowering techniques, will still be of great service to you, because you'll be more likely to be underleveled for the challenges ahead anyway. So being able to lower the enemy's stats to give you an easier time of dealing with them. More so the 2 that we don't have, unfortunately, are the ones you're going to want, because they lower their attacking power and their magic attacking power, so they can hurt you less, so you have more time to actually deal with what's coming at you. Theoretically, starting with the Zodiac Age, there is nothing stopping you from taking on most enemies at an insultingly low level. Like, it is kind of hilarious how low of a level you can fight some of the threats in the game, and kinda come out winning if you can just get the techniques in place straight away to lower their stats. At this point, I became aware that it wasn't working in my favour to have it set to only using slow. It needed to get rid of stop, so I changed that gambit as well. And despite the fact we've got nearly 20 minutes left still, we are approaching the halfway mark on this fight, even though it's only been about 15 or so minutes behind us. That's because, as you might have guessed, as the strategy of this thing evolves, the fight gets harder and harder, so it starts slowing down. Especially when it starts doing single targets. It starts prioritizing one particular ally, attacking them relentlessly until they died and moving on to the next person, creating more of a problem than what we had when it was just kind of alternating between everyone and we could keep on top of healing more. Additionally, you have also got the inevitable threat of, if this fight takes too long and he is putting you down too much, you will run out of your resources and will be relying solely on things like rays to keep your party alive. Meaning if your magic users go down, the fight's over. Thankfully, we technically have 3 people who have access to resurrection-based magic, because Ash, Balthier, and Redis all have rays of some kind. Redis actually has a rise, so has even more accessibility to him. Somehow Barsh got far enough away from the attacker that the gambits all but the last one turned on, so he just used Libra for no reason there, which just kind of surprised me, because I was like, what? Also, you need to pay attention to the petrifies. If a petrification ends up turning someone to stone, no gambit that you have set will register for it. You will need to actually go into your inventory and manually select the person who has got stone on them. I'm not sure what happens there. I feel like it's like the character that's turned to stone is no longer registered as existing. Similar to how when they're sent to the X zone, they're no longer really registered as existing. Which thank fuck, this thing can't do that. Can you imagine if this thing could send you to the X zone and could end the fight like in the snap of a finger? As it uses yet another judgment. Actually, let me, whilst this is going on, look up the actual stat list for the Hellworm so I can see what the official Final Fantasy wiki says, because we're gonna be here for a while, so I need to talk about other things, because it was still in the part of the fight where it's kind of repetitive. A lot of the worst of it is yet to come. And yes, if it does bother you, the official pronunciation of the word spelt W-Y-R-M is worm. Not wime, not rhyme. Worm. Rhyme is something that became more popularized in standardized or simplified English, aka what is often used in the United States. And that is not me trying to take digs, that is literally what it is called, the simplified English, whilst the rest of the world uses something called traditional English, which is why there's extra letters that seem odd or we do different words that expect you to know more, like what you call a sidewalk, we call pavement because we know you walk on it. You don't need to be told in the word. We know that horse riding is not horseback riding because we don't need the extra word of instruction. It's just a simplified version to make the English language easier on a casual level to be understood. The idea of it was never to try and pretend that the US is dumb. It's for people learning the English language to just give them an easier time because the English language is such a trade language. But anyway, I drifted far off topic, but I was just looking for something to talk about whilst the Hellworm wiki page came up. If you talk to an Imperial in an Albina fortress, you can get a quote from them referencing the worm to give you an idea, alluding to this guy being down here. What the Imperial says is, for instance, did you know that a great palace lies buried deep within the earth to the south of the capital? Well, within that palace there sleeps a terrible worm. Frightening, isn't it? And if it really exists, there's a fight best avoided. Let sleeping worms lie, as they say. That being your hunt. According to the wiki, Hellworm is an optional boss in Final Fantasy XII. It's regarded as a prelude and counterpart to the ultimate super boss of the game, Yzmat, which is incorrect. It is not the ultimate super boss. I will challenge you with Omega. Yzmat just has the most health. Hellworm is fought in the Soheim Cave Palace, and a player must open the door to the lair with the Age 1 key. Hellworm is also fought in the trial mode, which we'll be talking about later on stage 87, where the Jade Collar or the Excalibur can be stolen from it. It is worth mentioning, if you encounter a boss in the trial mode that is the same boss as one in the main adventure, it will have different loot on it and in the arena compared to its main game adventure, so more often than not they are worth stealing from. The bestiary entry reads, being a dragon of such high order of evil that it is called the King of Hell, legend claims that it once travelled freely between the world and the underworld, spreading destruction until the gods themselves intervened, robbing it of its power of flight and sending it plummeting into the abyss. Though it spread its wings again, meaning to challenge the gods' judgment, the power of the shining glyphs that placed upon it kept it earthbound, so it has slept for many eons in dark passages, awaiting the chance to rise once more. Oh, at this point I decide, wouldn't it be best to try and boost my physical stats to try and boost it more often? Instead of doing the wise choice of lowering the physical stats, now I know better. But no, it still helps a little bit. Because we are getting to the stage where the Hellworm's natural defense has increased, which always happens in the later half of the fight. It eventually will up its stats. The boss is only level 60, which is probably the most interesting thing about it for a super boss, which is the main reason why I even braved tackling it now. Because I actually looked at the stat list of all the super bosses before I went to start recording them, just in case I was really underleveled for it. Because if I was underleveled, well, this side video would have happened later on. But because I knew I was capable of dealing with it now, I just pushed for it. There's a strength of 55, magic power 48, vitality 99. Its speed is only 18, so it is not actually that quick. Its raw attack power is 102. It has no evasion, so it can't dodge any of your attacks, so you can just carry on wailing on it. It doesn't wield any experience or gil, but it is worth 30,000 points on your clan primer. So this will actually add to your clan primer like a hunt, and is worth 150 license points, which is amazing. It takes double damage from Holy, but absorbs Dark and only takes half damage from everything else. So unless you're using Holy magic, you might as well just hit it with non-elemental. It also has an innate ability called Safety, which I've alluded to several times, but now I've just read it, I might as well actually let you guys know. Safety is something that only bosses can have access to. It's impossible for you to get. And Safety is just absolute protection from anything that would make the fight too easy, essentially. Nothing that will stop it from attacking. You can't disable or mobilize it. You can't cause most status conditions. You can't put it to sleep. You can't stop it. You can't turn it to stone. You can't send it to the X-Zone. You can't knock it back at all with any strong hits. It will ignore a lot of your stats. It won't be affected by weather, even though you can't get any weather down here. It will ignore Reflect. Will do normal damage, plus it can never hit 0 MP. And will get a boost if it's at low HP to its attack. When it is lower than 50% health, it will take reduced damage. When it is lower than 10% health, the charge time on all of its magics will turn off. It will get something known as CT0. Because everything's charge time is registered by core numbers, it's not registered in seconds. So, say a basic attack is charge time 1. It will always take, it's always in the lowest level of charges. So any other attack or magic that is also CT1 will take the exact same amount of time, while CT2 takes longer, CT3 takes even longer, so on and so forth. CT0 is an ability it gets when its health drops below 10%, meaning it can instant cast any of its magic. So it doesn't need to fill up any bar to use its magic. So it's another fight that might be worth actually going into your options and turning off things like turning your battle speed to the highest possible, since it is not going to make a difference to the Hellworm anyway. It's only going to be benefiting you. I also decided to bring in a summon in the vain hope of seeing what I can do. But I didn't want to bring Zeromus in, because Zeromus, even against this thing, even if it's not as powerful, because, you know, it has several million health, and if we're talking 300,000 damage, it'd still be a hefty amount of damage. So I tried just using some attacks on it just to see what I can get away with. But what I should have really done is actually use its ultimate. But I decided against using it, and so it didn't happen. But I should have used either Tornado or its other technique that was there, and I just ended up not using it, and it ends up killing Chaos pretty damn quickly. And I only did this more to just buy me time, so I had more chances to get myself in a better position. Not that it matters, because Chaos is already defeated. Like I said, your best bet is, if you have reverse and an elixir, is summon Zeromus, cast reverse on it, and throw an elixir on it, and then get it to use Big Bang. It will hurt its enemy a lot. You could easily whip out close to 300,000 damage on it in one go, which would reduce the time of this fight tremendously. Not that I think to do it. I instead just decided to actually use a quickening, which, as you just saw there, quickenings don't do enough to justify their use against super bosses. It did barely anything. All we did was waste 4 minutes of your time, is why I edited out the entire thing. You can also steal from this thing, but it's barely worth it in my opinion, because you can get a Dark Stone, Dark Magicite, or Dark Crystal at 55% chance, 10% chance, and 3% chance respectively. Or if you have the Thief's Cuffs, that's boosted to 80%, 30%, and 6%, which I know makes over 100%, but it's just how it works out its odds, okay? So that's something, I suppose. But none of them are really worth it, because you're only going to sell them and then move on. If you're fighting it in trial mode though, it is a higher level, being level 74 instead of level 60. But it actually has lower health, and some of its raw stats are lower as well. It's just its base level is higher to make it more of a threat. This is just because trial mode is more of a gauntlet, so it's more to just give you an easier time of getting through it. They make things more manageable so you can get through the whole of it. Especially because those last few floors of the trial mode are insane. And I wouldn't really recommend them even if you've got the best setup in the world, because they're just not really worth it. Your only reward on the other side of it is New Game Minus, as our whole party just gets put out of action because Balthiers turned to stone. So we had to quickly just swap everyone out. And this was my first like minor panic moment, because I was like, oh, because it's boosted its stats so much. And it refuses to stop spamming the attack pattern that it's got for a good while. Like, I don't know what's triggered its exact pattern, but it lasts for a good while. And eventually it gets to a point where it weirdly kind of almost resets itself, where I guess it just did it too much and its pattern changed. Because it eventually actually changes the attack to something extremely forgiving, almost the polar opposite of the pattern it's giving us right now. But in the trial version of the Hellworm, it has a High Ether, Jade Collar, or Excalibur instead, based on the same odds in both versions. The official strategy recommends you be at least level 55 or higher, but it also says recommends having one person only be a dedicated healer, which Ash kind of became, so it's not too bad. Having Arise with you at all times, which we have with Radis or Phoenix Downs. Party members using basic attacks should be wearing heavy armors, and should have things like Bravery, if possible, granted on them to boost their physical attacks. They should have a Stone or Gold Needle buffer. They should have Protector, Histaga, Faith, and Decoy if possible. and towards your party tank bravery if it helps, just to stack it up. Decoy will make it so you're essentially far harder to hit. It will essentially hit the quote-unquote decoy instead. It's like when you use substitute in Pokemon, but nowhere near as effective. Protectga is just protects on the whole party, so boosts your defense. Same with Shelga, if you have that, it's magic defense, but you're not going to need it anywhere near as much because its magic stat isn't its threat. Rake is your threat. Hestega is just an everyone can attack as quick as possible for the whole party. Faith and Bravery is magic attack boosting and physical attack boosting respectively. It also recommends everyone having bubble belts, which is what I said at the start, so I'm glad that I knew that. It said all characters should be equipped with a gambit to get rid of stop, such as a Chronos tier. It says Shell can be useful once Hellworm starts to use Invert, but I don't understand how that makes sense, but either way. It says start the battle with 99 ethers. It knows. If you decide to come back after the Pharaoh's Tower, you can return to the secret shop in the Necra Hole and buy high ethers to just make it a bit smoother. But as you can see, Balthier's been turned to stone completely and no one is curing him because of it. So I have to manually go into it, pay attention and save his ass from it. Because it takes him out the fight. If the character's MP drops low, they may benefit from using Charge or equip the Turtle Shell Choker. The party's healer can also siphon MP with the skill Siphon. Expose, Shear, Wither and Addle, which will lower the stats, will all work. And like I said before, you can stack them all to make them far more powerful on them. It also recommends getting armor pieces that protect or immunize or even absorbs elemental damage, just so then the magic can be less of a threat. It says maybe bring the demon shields and black masks that absorb dark elemental damage. The adamant vests and adamant hats are half damage from fire, but are weak against ice, so be wary. Rubber suits nullify electric. And in the Zodiac versions, many accessories have gained elemental resistances, such as the diamond armlet now nullifying lightning damage. The key of making good use of this tactic is keeping a close watch on Hellworm's actions during the battle. For example, when the Hellworm is about to use Waterga, or Aquaga in the Zodiac versions, the player can immediately equip the party with Viking's Coat and nullify the damage due to its charge time. The switch to take effect as long as the damage from the attack is not yet displayed. So even if it goes to use it, as long as it hasn't shown the number value of it, it will still give you the ability to swap. Same is true for status effects such as Blind and Sap. If Hellworm is preparing to use Stone Breath, the player can immediately equip the party with Fuzzy Mitters to immunitize them against Petrify, although Petrify is not such a dangerous status due to the countdown being given. Before entering the battle's final phase, the Hellworm uses its Invert and Gur level magics. The Hellworm will, for a short period of time, be in a phase where it will use only Stone Breath, which is what we were in for a while. Quite painfully too. Equipping a tank with a Holy Lance can shorten the battle significantly. Excalibur, found in the upper levels of the Great Crystal, sorry I haven't gone there yet, is Holy Elemental and is very powerful, so can hurt it drastically. While it may seem like a good idea to help the Hellworm with Holy spells, this may not be wise. In the PlayStation 2 version it fills the effect capacity, delaying everyone else's turn. What's effect capacity? I'm actually kind of curious now. I've gone down a bit of a rabbit hole here. Effect capacity is a hidden measure in Final Fantasy XII that determines how many actions or other basic attacks can be executed simultaneously. If the total index exceeds a max capacity of 8, the action charge can only be executed when the earliest action ends. This is due to the hardware limitations of the PS2 being unable to handle too much graphical processing. Oh, so you're playing on PS4, it doesn't matter anyway, but if you're playing on base PS2, some attacks will have to wait to go through because too much is going on at once, essentially. The effect index of most tier 1 magic is 1, Ra for 2, Gur for 3, and 4 is for the strongest spells. So all the non-elemental tier 4s like Scathe and Flare. So if you had like 3 people using Scathe, only 2 of them would go through. Meaning the most advanced magics can only be executed when no other special animations are taking place. Some examples, such as Dark Gur and Gravigur, may look simple, but have high effect indices in other Gur magic spells. Because this system hinders play from performing special actions or magic spells, the player is encouraged to opt for weaker spells, especially while fighting enemies who rely on basic melee attacks. As we finally killed the thing, by the way. So it's just mass. But you might have noticed, during that last stretch of the fight, it kind of just gave up and started spamming very easy to manage attacks like Invert, making the fight just kind of fly away. Even though it still had like 4 bars left and it took us nearly half an hour to do the first bar. Like to do everything else. Yet the last few just fell apart in like a couple minutes. But once you defeat it, the thing will just fade into ashes and dust, and you are effectively done with the weakest of the 4 super bosses in the game. If you're really struggling, don't hesitate to come back later, because I tackled this as early as I could. You really don't need to. It's a super boss for a reason. The only reason I was brave enough to tackle it is because I've played this game before, even if there were still some things I was learning as I went. But I suppose that is a thing. You need to be more wary of what spells you bring, and like things like the Holy Boost will affect it if you bring Excalibur from the end of the Great Crystal here as well. But that being said, my throat's actually getting a little tired because I've spoke pretty much non-stop through this, so I'm going to wrap this up. Next time on Final Fantasy XII, we are finally getting back on the plot to go towards the Pharaoh's Tower. But till then, take care now.